Okay, great. All right, so a little explanation what the project actually was. So there's an organization called National Social Value Taskforce, and it has been operating for years. I'm not like a member of the steering group. This is just a project that we kind of I hopped into last year, representing whatimpact and then VCSEs. But National Social Value Task Force is led by Social Value Portal, who is speaking here later today about TOM system measures, and the steering group has been kind of steering the course of TOM system development back in the days, and is still operating as this kind of a social value, kind of a steering group body. But what they did, they wanted to have a VCSE working group working last year, kind of defining that what are the real challenges VCSEs face in public sector procurement, and how could we go about it. And so I entered with Katrina a group that consists of private, public, and VCSE sector representatives. We met on monthly basis between March and December, and everybody kind of contributed writing in this kind of like a guidance paper. And it was supposed to already kind of come out. It is practically ready, but I think it's graphically designed and so forth, so that has like delayed it a little bit. So that will be shared with all the participants and in public manner anyway later, and I believe it will be now in April that we could promise that. But kind of there were questions in the chat today about, for instance, the food bank kind of question, which also Jane Lynch rightly answered, which would probably get clarification from this very simple image. So this VCSE working group kind of defined kind of 3 different formats, which are very, of course, generic, but on a high level that VCSEs could think about their role in public sector procurement and social value. So there is the obvious route, kind of getting a direct contract from the government, and whether it comes from direct like a tendering or frameworks or neutral vendor frameworks or so forth. That represents currently quite small amount of the public sector procurement, and there are reasons for that. That, of course, VCSEs don't operate in every single sector. They are not necessarily building roads or, offering IT services and so forth. So VCSEs traditionally are bidding more of the, care services and so forth. So there are only certain areas that they could eventually even bid for. So that is one reason, of course, that the percent is not higher. But yes, there are structural barriers. There are a lot of barriers in the market, which have been already kind of, speaked about Claire Dove, and Jane Lynch was talking about the barriers that are kind of then maybe favoring commercially run companies with maybe more resources available for these bidding practices. But the second format to kind of become part of this whole procurement is to become a subcontractor, and it can be in different level. It can be a subcontractor directly to like a one main contractor, even in bid tenders, or then kind of down on the hierarchical subcontractor kind of chain, and that would be the commercial agreement, and then the VCSEs actually selling their services to that cohort. And this was something that Jane referred, that you could actually even bid together to be more kind of equal in the service delivery. But in some cases, you might be just jumping into kind of to a big contract that has been already won, where they are then looking for VCSEs as a contractor. Good example here could be like, let's say, if you're like employability, educational VCSE, you might be running some employability programs or educational things for the workforce who is already working for the contract, for instance, as a paid service. Then comes the third aspect of things, which then Katrina will kind of enlighten a little bit more. So we call it social value delivery partner or social value recipient. So this means that if you're the food bank provider and you are practically running your operations with voluntary income, you wouldn't be selling your services to anybody, but you could then benefit from the contracts, so that when the government suppliers are delivering the contract, they have now mandatory obligations to be relevant for the communities and deliver social value projects. They can then partner with you and provide you resources, whether it's voluntary money, product or service donations, so you can do your work better. And this becomes kind of like a partnership, which is like a voluntary income partnership rather than commercial partnership. And this then enables a lot of VCSEs to actually kind of jump into this scenario of public sector procurement in this kind of a role, delivering what they are delivering, but getting the support from the government suppliers. And we will be touching upon this kind of resource raising element later today, where I'm presenting the wheel of fundraising like a concept, and where we are talking with Alistair Shankland and Yen Tang later in the afternoon. You can check it out in the program. But I will now hand the stage to Katrina, and where she can share, her, kind of view on how these kind of partnerships work, and based on her long experience.
Thank you, Tiia. In the work that we've done regarding social value, and I've been a member of the National Social Value Taskforce for many years, and I also sit on the steering group and sat alongside Tiia on the working group developing the white paper that's now been put forward to provide that guidance to organisations and to the VCSE regarding how to maximise social value delivery and how to work with the VCSE to do that. One of the biggest barriers that I've seen over the years for the VCSE to be successful in their procurements and to sort of identify the social value that they offer is that distinction between social value and social impact and understanding the difference. So Tia's outlined there what we've put in the paper in terms of identifying the different roles that the VCSE can play regarding and what they do regarding working with social value. But quite often, whether or not we're issuing grants and we're asking for social value to be offered, those additional benefits to be offered back to us as part of that grant delivery, or whether or not we're procuring and we're asking for a social value offer back. Very often when we're working with VCSE, we will get to a point where the VCSE is saying to me, how do we define that? We do social value. It's intrinsic to what we do. That is what we do. We deliver social value. And in the main, that's because we use social value. We use and abuse it as a word. We use it very generalistically to cover so much. So Jane was talking now about partnerships. And again, partnership is a very broad term that's used to cover a lot of things. But if we start looking at social value about additionality, this is additionality more than your core purpose as an organisation, more than what you're delivering within that grant or within that contract, then you can start to identify actually what we do, what's that additionality that we deliver. So within this slide here, you can see the social impact from those blue arrows on the right hand side, and in the centre there you've got effectively your contracts and your grants being delivered by different sized organisations. So each of those yellow boxes represent different size organisations within the VCSE, and we all know how diverse and unique so many of the sector are. But for those that are delivering contracts, for those that are delivering grants, where they're being asked to offer additional value within that delivery, it's quite difficult to define what we do specifically there. And very often when we get bids back from suppliers or from the VCSE suppliers, they will start talking about their overall impact as an organisation, and also include in that response what they're doing with money that's being delivered, being given to them in that arrangement. When we're purchasing a contract, we will define in the specification what's to be delivered. We may well, how we design that, build in other elements of social value in terms of how it's described. But intrinsically, we're saying, this is the money, this is what you'd like you to deliver. We then ask you over and above how you deliver that, what additionality can you bring, what social value benefits can you bring. And that's where you start layering things in that aren't actually what we're paying for directly there. It's what you can bring also to that by how you operate as an organisation, by what else you do in terms of your delivery models, how you get funding resources from other sources. So here in those yellow boxes, you can see the social value delivery by the three themes, you know, the social, the environmental and the economic, and how it's quite different depending on what's being delivered, depending on which contract. And the fact that as an organisation, you are still delivering a huge amount of impact. And that social value delivery for that specific contract may not be all of that, it might just be an element. It's a really complicated issue to get your head around. But if you can think about social value as additionality rather than impact, you can start unpicking what is additionality that we can offer as an organisation. Because not, as Tiia outlined there, the VCSE are in a very unique position about their relationship with social value. So not only are they the recipients of potential social value being delivered by others, so Tiia outlined that in terms of donations or non-skilled volunteering, sponsorship, skills transfer, you know, the maturity of how that works with other partners will depend on how long you've actually been developing that relationship with that organisation. It could just be a business having a pot, you know, fundraising with individual members of staff and passing that across to you, or something far more mature. But you are the recipient potentially of that. And then you come on to the social value delivery in terms of defining it. If you can think about additionality rather than your overall impact as an organisation, you will start to be able to identify that, which will help you then put it into your bids. And I generally see that as the biggest barrier for VCSE to define and share the social value that they're able to offer. And it's a really difficult thing to do. If you're a window cleaning company or are out there mending boilers, you'd be able to see exactly what you do as an organisation, what your core purpose is, but also how you actually do that as an organisation, what benefits you bring. When intrinsically what you're doing is offering impact, it's far harder to separate that out.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Katrina. Yeah, so I'm not the expert in bidding or VCSEs bidding, but I sometimes have used an example that if you sell care home services, for instance, it might be that the council is looking for the, you know, the nursing and the bed and the room and you know, kind of meals, certain number of meals a day and certain kind of like a service deliveries like a standard. But then it might be that because the care home kind of concept is run by a VCSE and they have a lot of all kind of like a collaborative other charities maybe involved, a lot of volunteers doing a lot of stuff. Maybe there are reading clubs and all kind of exercise things, and maybe there are volunteers taking the elderly people out and organizing all kind of very value added services. That sometimes the VCSE just thinks that this is what we are doing, but technically, you know, the council didn't ask to pay for them. So that would be the exact additionality that would be added and explain how your service has that added value, which what wasn't in the description originally, but there will be then the added value and so forth. So this is just a simple example, but just kind of looking into very specifically for the description of the service, what you are getting money for, and then you have still probably some voluntary income funded other activities that will be part of the contract, and that's then your added value as a simple example.
And a good example of that is net zero.
Yeah.
You know, as an organisation where you are on your journey to be net zero.
Yeah. Okay, so we will be sharing this paper when we get it, because we've been just contributors. And just to say that we thank you also a large number of VCSEs who What Impact invited from our platform to the working group. So they've been contributing to this paper. And for all the VCSEs here, please sign up to What Impact. It's free. We don't take any commission and any kind of like activity what you do on the platform, and we will include you to many capacity building and these kind of like a collaboration projects as well. So please set up a profile. But now